Hi everyone, Angus Campbell here, Wednesday the 26th of June 2024. Right, hot on the heels of spraying the side panel on the B25SS. Let's get back onto Greg's Bonneville because the brake lines have arrived. And actually I've learnt something, I think we both have, that some people refer to these as Bundy lines. But anyway, whatever you want to call them, they're here and they look correct. So we can get on with finishing off the back brake. And for that we were waiting for this piece, which we didn't know we would be able to get, to be honest. We thought we might have to get it made up. But here it is. And so it sort of goes on. Oh my God. There's an aptitude test already. Oh, there it is, right. So, it's got to go from here into there. And that's got to be that end. So it goes something like that. And it looks about right. Anyway, we'll get on to that. Now, just before we do, just a quick thing that in parallel, because I've been using the parts washer recently, the ultrasonic cleaner recently for the Rocket 3 carburetor service, which you may have seen a few videos ago, two videos ago. I thought I may as well do the same to the carbs on the Bonneville. So I've just been stripping these down this morning, and it's the usual tale of bloody woe on this bike. There's a whole mix of screws that have been used on these carbs, even though they don't appear to be that old. So even a crosshead screw, and it should be crossheads for the cap and the fillet bowl and that's the wrong crosshead through screw. It's not long enough, it's the wrong profile. But we've got a right mix. Some of them are these flatheads, they work okay. But the biggest travesty, I think, is on the other carb. Can I find the parts now? Probably not. They're in here somewhere. Oh, here they are. Here's the one. Are these hexagonals, which are on the cap of the right-hand carb, I think. I'm not even, and they were stiff as hell coming out. I'm not even sure they're the right thread. They look a little bit coarse. So they might have damaged the damn thread, so I might have to use those. And then finally, stripping the other carb. Is there any chance that's going to run properly? Bloody hell. So that looks like water ingress. There we are, a similar point on the needle from it. We'll see how they clean up, but I'm not hopeful. That might be corroded. Metal corrode. Anyway, we'll give it a go. So there you go. Just something else to enlighten your day with amusement. Look at the slides as well. They're worn and corroded. So I think when this bike was allegedly, it wasn't restored. It was tarted up for somebody to bloody sell quick. It was a bloody mess, really. They haven't done the carbs at all. Where's the other slide? I mean, really, I'm going to speak to Greg because I think we need new slides. They're quite badly worn. We might need new needles and new needle jets as well. The main jets look okay. We'll check they're the right size. Anyway, we'll speak to the owner. Right, I'll just get those cooking and then we'll get back on the stool, sit down and have a think about this lot. Right, before we get sat down and onto the back end, we're obviously looking for anything to try and avoid that job. The carbs have been cooked at gas mark 60. Stuff's come out all right, actually. The the needle jet that was all gunged up is nice and clean now and clear. I don't know whether you'll be able to see that really. Yeah, there you go. Its needle I've managed to clean up okay with plastic wool, so I think that'll be all right. So the only query is with the slides. I mean, there's a bit of scoring at the top there. It's quite badly scored really, but I don't recognise the I'll have to look these markings up. So it's 928, which is fine, but then, you know, rather than the opening size like 3, 3.5, 4, I can't quite see it there, just hang on a minute, let me have a look. It says can't even read it. It's got 5 MB5. You can't see that, I don't think. It's just the MB5. Is that a number 5 opening? I don't think so. Right, we'll have a look in the manual of it for that. So anyway, this lot's ready to be assembled again. Except I need to find a set of screws. I think I've got set screws in my stash, the proper ones. I've been looking all over for that. I thought I'd lost it. For God's sake, it was there all the time. Right, yeah. Leave that for now anyway. Let's get on the back end. I've got everything all lined up. Multiple new fasteners, all the parts for the back brake. Cleaning fluid, because we're going to clean up all this lot too. I'll get that chain off at some point. Well, first actually it's going to be in the way, because we'll clean that up as well, and we'll give it a bath in oh, what do you call it, the chain link stuff, a tin of it. I'll dig it out anyway, we'll boil it up in that. So we'll do a bit of cleaning first, and then what we've got to do now is we've got to remove the rear master cylinder from its sort of first fitting, because we need to disassemble the brake arm from the old one and fit that and the rear brake pedal with its return spring before we then slide this over the threaded portion underneath. There it is, round the back here of the new one, and adjust it. And I think that's the way of getting that spring on there without you know, just destroying your fingers. So I've got good old gunk at the ready, plenty of kitchen roll and polish, and let's get this clip lock cleaned up first and get that chain out of the way. I know what you're thinking, it looks as though I haven't done anything. Well, I have. So the chain's off, and I've just been polishing up and tidying up this end, including sort of touch up with black where required. It's looking a lot better, a lot tidier. Got rid of all those horrible thin plastic cable ties. Right, I've taken off the rear master cylinder and sorry, its mounting plate's still there, but I've taken it off, and I just wanted to remind myself that I needed to pack out one of its mounting bolts so that it didn't come through as much on this side of the mounting plate, because otherwise it was fouling on this frame spar. So I've done that. I'll put a plain washer either side of a thick spring washer, and that'll act as a spacer and also act as a bit more security. Not that we need it really. Right, other things to note. I've got rid of the kickstart because it needs a new cotter pin anyway, and it's a classic. Nice V out of it, knackered. There's plenty of stuff gone in the bin. The old master cylinder's gone in the bin. Now, here's something else I've dug out. The reservoir for the rear master cylinder. Look at the bloody state of it. I don't think we ordered a new one. I'll check the stash box. It's very corroded. Well, we can get it on the wire wheel, see if it'll clean up all right, but the important thing is it's got a seal. And as we know, it wasn't doing that. All right. Cleaned up the rear brake arm. That's come up not too bad. Still some decent zinc plating on that. And those are the nuts that go either side of this to attach the threaded arm. Right, another disaster we found. Just cleaning the rear end up. Shock absorber this side looks okay. The other side, the adjustment at the bottom, it's broken and half of it's missing. Look at that, flapping around in the wind. And so the spring is actually sat on the adjuster butts. Now it looks as though they've put some sort of, let's go and have a look, because this is bloody dangerous. And obviously, we've been riding, well, Greg's been riding that around with that like that, with an uneven spring tension. Now, I was wondering if they'd put that in there, you know, as a stopgap, but it looks as though we've got one on the other side, like a flat washer that the adjuster butts up to. But anyway, that's knackered. Luckily, I was about to trash the two rear shock absorbers that were damaged during transit from the Rocket 3. So I can split these and see if that one fits. I can already see it's different. Because these are oil shocks, these are gas shocks probably. Anyway, we'll come to that in a minute. Anything else? I haven't touched the carbs yet. Oh yeah, outside. I'm just putting a bit of paint on the speedo drive because that was scratched to buggery. Just cleaning up and degreasing everything. Next thing we'll do actually while we're in this state is we'll have a look in this in the oil tube and drain it and stuff like that before we get much further. I dread to think what's in here. I can't remember if we drained it already or not, so let's get a bowl under there and check that. Right, before I go any further, I'm just trying to weighing this up, the bottom plate here. It's not focusing very well, sorry. There is a drain plug there, which I'm struggling to get undone, and there's something next to it. I haven't got a clue what the hell that is preventing the spanner going in properly. This plate doesn't look original to me, so we're going to take the whole lot off. There's only 4 half-inch nuts on it. We'll take the lot off and see what the hell's going on here. That actually blows, so I've got the nuts off. No washers, and it's onto an alley plate. Which is beginning to, there we go. Give it a bit of a tease, and we'll get it off in a sec. The oil is very black, it's not the worst I've seen. There doesn't seem to be very much coming out of it, which probably means that we'll need to take the sump off the bottom of the motor, which isn't a bad idea anyway. It's probably sumped it. Right, let's let that drain. I'll get the sump off the engine and then we'll have a look at this plate under here and see what the hell's going on and check it with the parts book. There's your answer. It's what I suspected. So I believe that's what's called a Charlie's filter or something like that. I'll look it up in a minute. I did buy a kit for the A70 but decided not to fit it. Now these are aftermarket. I think they're developed in the US. A lot of people do not recommend these because they're on the feed side, not the return. I'll check the manual. I'm sure these weren't fitted as standard. We'll check the parts book, sorry. But that's what I think that is, a Charlie's filter. It's sludgy at the bottom of this. So this filter needs changing. Where do we get one? Let's check the parts book. Not much oil come out there. But there's no sump plate on the motor. I haven't noticed that before, but there is some sort of plug. Oh, you can't see it. Plug under here, just to the left of my finger. It's just here. I'm going to take that out and let it pop. I'm making a jolly mess here because the oil is dripping back through the feed line from the motor. But anyway, just going back to this filter. So yeah, I'm right. What this should have is, as per the original oiling frames and my A70 Lightning, this is a flat plate with a gauze filter. It's not a full flow paper element, which that is. So that's an aftermarket Charlie's. So we'll speak to Greg about that, about what he wants to do with that. And then with respect to draining the sump, then I'm right where I'm attacking it at the back here, because the it's quite a large nut there, but what it is apparently is a sump filter. So we'll go the other side and we'll get that off, and hopefully a ton more oil will pour out. Otherwise we were running very low. Right, we got it off 13/16, but I had to use the socket and the breaker bar to get it undone. Bloody hell was it tight. But anyway, it's off, and it's not in bad condition. It doesn't look as though it's been butchered too much in the past. It's obviously been off before, but God, somebody put that on tight. Anyway, it needs a bloody good clean. I presume that hole there is for the return feed. Let's see if I can stick my finger up. Stick my finger in Thor. Yeah, okay. The return pipe's there. So that hole is correct, but it's filthy. So we'll get that into the gunk. Where's my gunk bath gun? There it is. Something else to add. And then, well, some oil came out, but that is not a full tank or anywhere near, and it is quite black. But anyway, we've got there. Now, just having another think about this filter. We can take that off and we'll wash it in petrol and see how it comes out. Of course, this is all distracting me from the primary objective of this video is to do the back end. But I will come on to that in a moment, honestly. Right, there's the base of the reservoir for the rear brake master cylinder. Look at it. The central hole, which is clear, is the mounting hole for the reservoir itself. The other two holes are supposed to be clear. This is toast. I'm sure we haven't ordered one, but I'm going to get one sorted out. I'm not doing that. This brake cannot have worked. And just for completeness, there's the bottom side of the reservoir that sits on it. I think there's a clue there as to why it might have been leaking all over the rear mudguard. I mean, the reservoir itself probably is okay, but we'll see how these how they're bundled together. I'm sure we're going to have to buy the lot. Doesn't look like it, but we've got big progress. So this rear engine plate is on, and it's secured at the top here onto the engine, and there from the engine. So you've got to put the bolts in from the back. This is the correct way round. Nuts on the outside. I always remember that from my 70s Triumph riding days. And remember, I had a brand new T140D in 78 and a T160 in 76, not new. Now, these two are short bolts. They just connect the plate to the frame, but say these two connect then the plate to the engine. So they're longer, as you can see, that length from the top. Now then, this big nut is obviously rear brake spindle nut. So it goes through this plate and screws into the plate that is the mounting plate for the rear master cylinder. So it's a big mounting point, but it also obviously the rear brake spindle, brake pedal spindle goes through this. What you've got to do before you put this nut in and screw it up to the plate, this plate at the back, you've got to put this spindle through the nut before you screw it in, because otherwise once that nut's in you cannot get this spindle in from the other side because of the arm, which is just there. The other thing is don't forget the spring, as I did, the return spring here. So one side of the return spring obviously goes on the arm, spindle arm. The other side is behind it, and it actually goes onto the edge of this plate, which sort of goes down here behind here, and that's how you get the return mechanism then. And I thought that was going to be an absolute pig, and it looks a pig when you first look at it, because this loop, you know, is way back there and you think, how the hell am I going to get it there? But actually with a bit of a lever and a long screwdriver, it went on first time, so I'm dead chuffed with that. So now I can put on the rear brake arm here, just so we can move the rear brake pedal here, so we can move the brake arm at the back, because the brake arm at the back, you can see at the fork at the bottom there, is where we adjust it onto the master cylinder threads, which is here. So we'll mount up the master cylinder again now. Now then, here's the, you can see I'm having fun here because there's bloody tools everywhere. Right, there's the two nuts that go either side of the ferrule. Please God, say I haven't lost the ferrule. The ferrule's here somewhere that goes into the fork. There it is. So this goes, let's do it from here. There's your fork. The ferrule goes in there, into that. The threaded bar goes into that, and these nuts go either side to lock it, and also are adjusting. So what we need to do first is we need to put that, this is symmetrical, so either side. Oh God. Sorry, the view is terrible because I'm going to put the rear brake pedal on, because you need to move that fork away from the frame to get that in. Oh God. That's it, rear brake pedal on. Not nicely done up, full nut on there, lock nut, that's great. There was some resistance at first to the spindle pulling all the way through, and that's because you can't see it very well now, but as usual, the return spring has got to be located properly on the spindle, and so you need to give it a bit of a clout, because obviously when it's effectively compressed, it distorts slightly, and therefore it can get in the way of the spindle coming all the way through. But anyway, that's working well now. Obviously the brake pedal is high because I think it's the footrest, the front footrest acts as a stop, so it'll be sort of down there. But anyway, returning nicely, nice and free. I greased up the spindle before I put it on, and now you can see I've got the ferrule in there. You've got to turn that the right way round. Are you there? Like that, with a hole towards us. And now we can slot in the rear master cylinder, but before you do that, make sure you put on one of the lock nuts to go around that ferrule, and then the other one goes on the other side once we've got it in. So I'm going to mount this up now. I need two hands, so I'll bring you back shortly. And when we mount it up, as I say, we'll be using the two nuts and bolts that we did in the first fit, but with a sort of spacer so it doesn't pull all the way through here and foul on the frame. Right, that's it, rear master cylinder in. I had to actually ground down a nut to make a half nut here with just a washer on it, because there's just no room there at all now that this plate's bolted up properly. But we've got a spring washer on the other end, so there's tension on it all the time, so I'm not worried about that. The bottom mounting is fine with the lock nut, so we're all good. This is all loose at the moment because obviously we want to bleed and stuff. But there we go. That's not operating the master cylinder yet because of course we haven't got, where is it? There it is. The other lock nut on the other side. Maybe I could put that on now. But anyway, we'll do a bit of clearing up the tools here. These are the silencer hangers, so we'll get those out of the way. We don't quite want those yet. Get the tools out of the way, and the rear wheel's sitting behind me, ready to go in. Just move the aerial 3 out of the way, and we'll slot it in. Yes, the rear master cylinder is dismounted again off its plate because, and I'll push the brake pedal down here just to show you, just in there. You can see there the brake arm fork with its ferrule in the middle and the nut on the threaded rod from the master cylinder on this side. But when everything's in situ and probably bolted up, you cannot get the same nut on the other side of that ferrule to clamp it in place because the bottom of the frame, which you can see there on the left hand side, gets in the way. You can't do it. So you have to unbolt the rear master cylinder and pull it backwards. Right, anyway, that's done. So I can now bolt that up, and then we'll line up all the little bits and pieces on each side that we need to ensure that everything's included on the wheel spindle when we put the wheel in, and then we'll be there. Right, rear master cylinder back on again, and everything appears to be all now in order. There's a bit of slack there yet because I've got to make some adjustment at the top, but it's actually working the master cylinder, so that's good. Right, I've also just taken out that oil filter, managed to disassemble that, so we'll see if we can wash that in petrol. And I've also put the sump drain plug stroke gauze filter back in the engine as well, trying to stop it dripping oil a bit. There shouldn't be that much left in there surely, but there's still some coming out there. So next thing and final thing for this video is laying out all the parts. Now that should be over there. So on the right hand side, Speedo's driven this side as well as the brake, etc. It's all very complicated. As far as I can work out then, we obviously need to put that on the end of the swinging arm, and then I believe it's this washer which isn't shown in the parts book, and then in between those two we've got the caliper mounting plate, then we've got a washer which is shown in the parts book before the Speedo drive, and then we've got the wheel. All very complicated. Right, and then on the other side it's just the basic chain adjuster and the plate that it pushes on and the nut. No washer, no nothing. So it says, and that's all the parts that I've got anyway that were on the spindle. So we need to take the spindle off, drop the caliper mounting plate, because that'll pivot down out of the way, and then we can get the wheel in and start having a play. It's in. Now it's beginning to look like a motorcycle. However, I just need to do a bit of checking up here because I struggled for a little while, obviously ensuring that all the components were put in correctly so that the disc lined up properly with the pads and the caliper. And I was struggling a bit initially because I'd got a couple of things wrong. Firstly, I assumed that the caliper mounting plate went on the inside of the swinging arm, but it would never line up to do that, so it's got to be on the outside. And the second thing is that I think I put this bracket on the wrong way around originally. So I mounted the caliper and the caliper plates up in the wheel and got the spindle through with all the other components initially without this bracket. Everything lined up well. I've now put this bracket on the other way around and it lines up perfectly. Now, as I say, have I got that right? If anybody thinks I haven't, then you know, please chip in. It's just all a bit bloody Heath Robinson, really. I can understand now why we've got this nice big washer, which isn't shown in the parts book. That the radius on that lines up perfectly with the radius of this part of the caliper mounting plate, so I think that's right. But then, you know, is this right that the chain adjuster goes on the inside of that? It has to be. It can't go on the outside of that. Just looks a bit odd to me. Anyway, I might have got it right. Some of you might be screaming at me. We know the rear master cylinder is right. Anyway, please feel free to leave any comments. As you know, I've been doing moronic painting on the B25SS recently, so we could call this moronic putting together the rear wheel on a Bonnie from a Thicko. But anyway, it does all line up beautifully. The wheel turns beautifully, and it's right. The disc is right in the centre of that caliper, so that has to be right. From this angle, it just looks right. And then on the other side, you know, there's nothing much to worry about here on the other side, just the chain adjuster. So that's it. The wheel's in. Let's have a quick look at it from the other side where it's a bit clearer, and we might get a better impression then of the bike. There you go. It's a bobber. Now we're getting there. Once we've confirmed that wheel's correct, then there's lots of things we can crack on now with respect to the air boxes behind the engine. They've got the carbs to put on exhaust pipes. That's all pretty straightforward. The electrical tray and the battery tray in the triangle area, and then we can put on the rear mudguard, and we won't be far off then, really. So good progress, I think. Okay, we'll call it there. I'll stop rambling on. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Thanks for your interest, any comments and subscriptions, and I'll see you all again soon after a little break. Cheers.